we go.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Sam. Do you want to start?
You got it. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see a lot of your faces. It's always nice to have human contact these days. It's just the little things, right? But hopefully all of you who ordered lunch got your lunch. And if you didn't, then I'll be texting you if your driver is outside and texting me. So I'll let you know. But if you have ordered and it hasn't arrived, just check outside your front door because it may have just been left there by the driver. So anyway, I'm Samantha Shue. I'm with Movement Mortgage. I'm a loan officer here. I've been in mortgage since 2001. And I am one of the top 5% of loan officers here at Movement. And I own my own home, my single family residence with my husband, and we have 2 kids here who are 10 and almost 7. And we just sold our first house and bought this new house. And so just kind of, just went through that process, which was interesting. My vision for the world is positivity, and gratitude. Always looking for the silver lining. And even though we're going through so much right now, there's always something good that comes out of everything. So it's nice to have y'all here. And Shannon, take it away.
Awesome. My name is Shannon Shue. I'm a real estate agent and I'm an investor. I invest mostly in Los Angeles. I have 1 piece of property in Colorado. I have nine units total. I'm squirreling my cash right now. Getting ready to buy something else. And I'm obsessed with Vietnamese spring rolls, fresh or fried. I like either way. And my vision for the world is to connect and create more vulnerability, because I feel like we are definitely not able to connect as usual. And so I think it's always nice to be able to really sink down into something meaningful. All right, we are gonna go to the next slide. Agenda. Should I do this, Sam?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of an economic update. I just attended Family Reunion, which is Keller Williams's largest convention, virtually. And I took some of the slides from what Gary Keller had given about nationwide home sales. And I think that is very indicative mirror of what's going on in Los Angeles. We're gonna do some housing market updates. I'm just gonna focus on duplexes today. And then Sam's gonna give some new loan updates, both in multifamily, mostly actually in multifamily. Today we're doing multifamily only, and some tax advice from a lender. You have no messages. Okay, so we'd love to hear from you guys. Just 3 simple questions, because we just want to get to know you a little. Main thing is your name. What do you do for a living? And we'd really like to know one thing you want to learn today. Just one nugget you would really love, or if there's a burning question, maybe it's wrapped in here, or towards the end we get to the burning questions. So we will go around the room. You can always pass if you're like, I don't want to introduce myself. I totally get it. But let's start with Lori.
Hello, my name's Lori Harper, and I work for MHT Property Management, and we're with Keller Williams. I'm located in Denver, and the topic of this class just really appealed to me, and just wanting to gather any knowledge I can get. It's all good. It seems to be relevant wherever you're going to be. So yes, just wanted to see what you've got, what tidbits of information you guys can provide in the help, because we represent a lot of investors and always trying to get people to invest in more real estate on the rental side as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Lori, it's a pleasure. Neil.
Neil Sweda. I'm retired. I just come in here for the market updates. I'm kind of looking to buy some more real estate, so I'm just trying to figure out what's going on in the market right now. Thanks.
For sure. Yeah, today's going to be a good one, Neil. I think you're going to like the stats we're going to go over. Joyce.
Yes, my name is Joyce Sales. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I want to learn the popular neighborhoods that the most real estate movement is in. And I also am looking for 30 to 40,000 square feet of commercial space for a county office facility that's relocating from the location they have behind the mall on Stocker and Santa Rosalia.
Okay.
So if anyone has any insight to space that would be available within this general area would be appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, most folks here are probably more investors than agents, but yeah, good to put it out there. John.
Hey, Shannon. So my name is John Caporal. I work at Twitter, live over in the Crenshaw area. To be honest, I don't know what I want to learn today. If there was like one single thing, this is my first time coming to this, and I own one, and my wife and I own one investment property, and we are in the process of, knock on wood, buying a second with Shannon. So just kind of like really want to absorb everything from all the professionals on today's call.
Fantastic. Corey. Corey. Okay, we'll skip you, Corey. Ruben.
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
My phone died. I'm walking. So I'm Corey. I work for the NFL, looking to buy my first property, and I'm hoping to make it some kind of an investment where I can rent out the majority of it and live small in the back with an ADU or maybe a multifamily. I haven't decided. It's my first purchase, so I'm just looking to learn everything I can. And that's it. Thanks.
Fantastic, Corey. Ruben.
Hi, this is Ruben. I'm a marketing manager, and my burning question is I'm getting ready to sell my place. I'm just wondering, next step after that, do you have a sense of, what the market is going to be doing? Not that you have a crystal ball, but, just kind of weighing out my options for after that, like sit on the sidelines or just get into like an investment property.
All right, Ruben. Yeah, we'll definitely cover that a little bit today. Mindy. Oh, you're muted, Mindy.
Okay, hi. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have a private practice in Santa Monica and Torrance. And I am really looking forward to hearing about duplexes because I have an interest in that. So thanks, Shannon.
All right, awesome. Anne.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, everyone. My name's Anne. I work for a health tech company in Santa Monica. And what I want to learn today is how to get started, mainly like how far in advance should I look, pre-approved loans, how far in advance should I go for that before I start looking and all that.
Okay, sure thing, Anne. Dana. You're muted.
Hi,
yeah.
Dana. So I'm just looking into learning more about investment properties, income properties as well. So I live in the neighborhood that you represent with your agency. And so I just like to read your newsletters and keep up. So I'm glad I'm here to watch.
Awesome, Dana. Yeah. Is it Gert? I hope I'm saying it right.
Yes, it's Gert. Thank you, Shannon. My name is Gert. I am from South Africa and I moved here about like 5 years ago. So I work in the health and fitness industry as a studio manager. And what I want to learn today is also the same as Anne, where to start, because I want to invest in rental properties so I can have some passive income.
Fantastic. Sounds great, you guys. Marius?
Hello, Marius. I work in advertising, love good food, and yeah, looking to see to invest in also to some rental properties and other types of real estate investments for the future.
Okay, sounds good. How about Max?
Hi, Max here. I'm with Comfort Keepers. We provide in-home senior care to seniors. So really just interested in what's happening with the market in real estate, because a lot of my older clients, of course, they're moving to facilities, know what to do with their homes. So just getting a better idea of what's going on so I can provide some type of insight to them and direct them to the right people like Shannon.
Oh, thanks, guys. Joe. You're muted, Joe. Okay, we're gonna skip you, Joe. We're gonna go to Wanda.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tawanda Carpenter. I work for AT&T on the digital media entertainment side, and I'm looking to, in the future, near future, buy a residential property, single family home. And I'm also looking for a commercial property to probably just start off with leasing on the food industry side.
Okay, great. Well, Joe, did you want to just introduce yourself? You're my last person, I think. But I wanted to make sure I don't skip you.
I think we skipped Dana, no?
Oh, I thought Dana, no, we
she did. Okay, maybe I just green skipped Dana. Okay.
Dana's in my neighborhood.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Okay, so we will go from here. So I'm going to go through some statistics that I just went to family reunion for Keller Williams. And there's a big top-down view of the market. So I'm going to do the top-down view, and then we're going to go into some duplex numbers just in city of LA. And the reason I focus on LA is because I'm an agent in LA. I think Los Angeles is an expensive market. Samantha's going to go over some of the lending because she's on fire with lending these days. I'm sure both on the refi and the new loan side. But really, the unemployment numbers. The GDP and the amount of inventory we have on the market are the three things I want to cover, just related to the health of the economy today. And then we'll go into more specifics because we started nationwide and then we go directly down to city. So we're going to have no state and no county numbers. We're just going to big to little. So historic unemployment today, we are at historically high unemployment. You can see the trend here. We have only 4 other periods in the last almost 80 years of data here where unemployment is so much higher than 5%. That blue line right there is 5%. So this is alarming for most people. Strangely, though, the stock market is doing phenomenal and people are buying homes left and right. So I don't know that I have a good explanation, but I think I have some good data to really sort of help you continue to ponder what's going on. So I just wanted to, this was a slide that was shown recently. It's the unemployment by income sector. So from the left to the right, we have financial activities, professional business services, wholesale trade, construction, manufacturing, and then all the way to leisure and hospitality. And they organize the graph really well to kind of say, if you're more on the left, your unemployment in this particular industry is very low. It's very 3.4%. You want to be well under 5. If that were just the industry alone we were going to look at, we're doing great. However, look at leisure and hospitality. They're like making up for a lot of the unemployment, and you have a comparison of last year unemployment of August 2020 to January 2021. And we are seeing some reductions in unemployment by sector. The only areas where I see the increase is construction, which is surprising because they feel like builders are really trying to build as quickly as possible to meet this housing demand. Nonetheless, though, I think that's the only sector here that I see is increased in unemployment. And I show this to you because it's a real mixed bag. We have unemployment in the strong sectors like real estate, very low, and then leisure and transportation, warehouse, these are sectors where it's still very high. It's still above 9% in construction, which I mentioned earlier. So yeah, that we all can't be moving in 2 different economies based on our industry. At some level, it'll all compress down, which is represented in GDP. GDP is your gross domestic product. It's the total amount of all goods and services produced in a country. Well, last year we were in the negative, right? So that's our total, that's all the sectors put together. That's not a good sign. That's alarming, in fact. But consumer confidence has roared back, which is why stocks have done so well. So here we are, really figuring it out. I think that 2021 is going to be a banner year. I think GDP will not only increase back to the positive, but potentially will make up for 2020. Just look at things like car sales. And I mean, Amazon is doing phenomenally well. And those are all mostly manufactured goods that we buy. And all of those manufacturers that sell to Amazon or sell through Amazon are selling a lot, right? And then we are consuming entertainment through streaming, and we are consuming technology in ways that we never have before because we're home so much. Okay, so let's look at home sales. A lot of people keep asking me, like, where's the foreclosures, or where are the short sales, or, I'm waiting for those. I'm going to say from 2019 comparison to 2020, the sales demand has increased. And in fact, if I were to name, and it's always easier to see it in the past, the best time to, quote, buy a property was actually probably May, June, maybe July, but really May and June, when there was a lot of uncertainty, that there was a lot of fear. And so uncertainty is a really good time to invest, but then you also are taking a bigger risk. And so comparing 2019, May and June, we were up higher, and then sales dropped in 2020. It means we had more inventory. Inventory was sitting, and that was the uncertainty situation we had last year. And so now everyone's waiting for that next point of uncertainty, or they're waiting for foreclosures or short sales, which I don't believe are really going to hit the market and make much of a difference because the inventory is so low. But
and then Shannon too, just talking a little bit about foreclosures, because everybody's waiting for that to happen. And
yeah,
the fact that 10, 11 years ago in 2010, when the recession was caused by the housing market, was caused by my industry, actually, most part, because there was really no structure around what loans could be made and what couldn't. And if any of you purchased property back then, you might remember that so long as you fogged a mirror, you could get a loan. It was stated income. So long as you had a great credit score, you just stated your income, stated your assets, and you got a loan. You could get a loan for 0 down, 100% financing. You could have gotten a loan where you paid less than the actual payment that was due. And so a lot of people chose to pay that lower amount. All of a sudden, right, the rug got pulled out from everybody. House prices went down, right? And then you owed more than the property was due. And so a lot of foreclosures happened because there was no equity in these properties. People purchased them with very little down payment or none. Now, ever since 2010, there was something called the Dodd-Frank Act that went into my industry to help make sure that these loans were well-qualified buyers. And so now, in order to qualify for a loan, if you purchased a house 10 years ago and now you're purchasing one or just about to get into the process of it, you're going to be shocked because every single thing is going to be asked about, because the underwriter is now on the line to make sure that every tax return is completely legitimized and so forth. And so what that means is now we don't really have 100% financing anymore except for a VA loan. But over the last 10 years, as people found new loans and putting more down payment and the house is appreciating, right? We've had low inventory for quite a while. So housing market has appreciated, right? And now everybody has a lot of equity, a lot of money. They owe a lot less than the house is worth. So what does that mean? That means now if that person, that borrower is having trouble making their mortgage payment, likely that mortgage company is going to want to do a loan modification versus foreclose. They're still in pain from what happened in 2010, those banks. They don't want to sell properties. That's not their market, they're banks. So what they want to do likely is they're going to modify those loans for those borrowers who are having trouble making the payments. Right now, those borrowers are all on mortgage forbearance, so they're not even making their payments. But I don't see foreclosures happening because A, there's so much equity in these properties, and B, those banks are likely going to do loan modifications. So that's my 2 cents on foreclosures, and not really any foreclosures coming.
Right. And I mean, that's perfect, Sam, because that's really like what you just described is this slide. Homes sold in 2008 run up versus the 2020 run up, right? And all that mint color, the 28.2 million homes were sold nationwide in the 5 years to the run up to the crash. In the 5 years to the run up to the pandemic, 27.3 million homes were sold. So we're at roughly the same volume, but all those loans are good, like you said. Like, we didn't give them to just people that could fog a mirror. So the foreclosure rate is going to continue to not be as high as we anticipate because people weren't just buying it because it was so easy. So yeah. And then inventory nationwide by month, it's at historic lows. It's ridiculously low, very difficult to get into escrow. If you do get into escrow, people are really hanging on to that escrow. The only time periods here where 2020 was had higher inventory than 2019 were, again, the month and a half after March, which is May, was higher inventory than there was in 2019 nationwide. And I saw that here. I saw a lot of sellers sitting on the sidelines like, well, I don't know what to do. It was hard to see a property. We didn't have real clear guidelines on how to get you in. And then lenders were also getting very skittish. Sam, right? Wouldn't you say there was a little bit of—
Oh my gosh. So in March, we were trying to figure out what was going on. And then in April, all the jumbo loans stopped. So in our county, in LA County here, over loans that were over 765,000. So most homes, like the average price of what people want to buy out here is probably around 750 or $1 million. So you would need to get a jumbo loan. All of those loans stopped. Those investors said, no, not right now. We need to wait and see. And so that was just causing a lot of panic and extended escrows, and some fell out and some stuck to it, and some lenders got back in the game. And we're still coming back from that time. But yeah, it's interesting because that was April, May was probably when all of those programs got shut down. And then they started being reintroduced late summer. And every day it's like something new. What can we do? What can we not do?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think particularly because this is nationwide, if we just looked at Los Angeles County, the amount of inventory that sat during this time period would be even higher compared to 2019 because of those jumbo loans going away, because many clients need to tap into a jumbo loan to buy in this market. Whereas other markets, it's not quite so necessary. The average home prices are not in the multi-millions. Okay, so I'm going to this is my quick plug for duplexes, because then I want to transition into from these larger nationwide numbers into what's going on here in Los Angeles. So I just pulled duplexes statistics for the last 6 months under $1 million, because the loan limit for conforming loans is under $1 million. Well, it's $1 million and some change, right? It just changed for 2021. Samantha will go over that in the next slide or two. And then I compared that to the previous 6 months, which would have been almost the 6 months post-pandemic. It's February to August, whereas it would be really March to August, but that was only 5 months. I wanted to do a 6-month comparison, so I added 6 months. In the city of Los Angeles, 354 duplexes sold in the city, compared to the previous 6 months where there were 229. So that tells you already that's an uptick of over 30% from 6 months then to 6 months now. Canceled contracts 122 in the previous 6 months. With that much uncertainty, when you had like that March, April, May period, there were a lot of canceled contracts. Sellers like, forget it. I'm not going to let anybody in this house, or my tenants are are freaked out about it, and they're not going to show this home. They're not going to show the duplex. So lots of cancellations. And then really surprisingly, I thought this would be a flip-flop of the number, but expired contracts were expired listings were 172 in the last 6 months, but 157 in the 6 months prior to that. Not exactly sure of potentially why, but I do think that in Los Angeles, because landlords are having a harder time potentially collecting some of their rents, getting access to the property if it were on market during the period in the last 6 months. The previous 6 months may have just been considered the natural expiration of many of the listings, but then I think more expired because they couldn't get the price they wanted, or they couldn't come to terms with the fact that the tenants and rent collection in the city has just been very difficult because we have an eviction freeze. You cannot evict. Was very difficult. So, and then last but not least, 194 current active duplexes on the market in the city of Los Angeles, and 174 are currently pending or under contract. So that tells me that we do have a more inventory. More is all relative, and they're getting under contract. So, quote, looking for a deal, looking for a duplex. I think now the deal is that you get under contract, because what you are now paying in the price, you're getting discounted in the interest rate. So I'm going to let Sam kind of talk a little bit more about interest rates and where we are with those things.
Okay, sounds good. Shannon, I decided I wanted to add those other slides back in. Seems like we have the time. So I don't know if you want to just take it out of presentation mode and put it back in, because I unskipped them. So I added them. Okay. All right. While Shannon's doing that, oops. You want to go ahead and go back, just take it out of presentation mode?
Yes. So I did it.
So while Shannon's doing that, just to fill our time here, the loan limits have changed for every year. They change. This is a good place to start, Shannon.
Okay.
And so we'll talk about what those changes mean. But for now, just to kind of explain what Shannon was saying. So I'm not sure for those of you who are out of state, but in Los Angeles, there's no evictions allowed. So no evictions and no rent from some of these tenants means that the landlords are being squeezed. So if you Shannon and I like to talk about what we kind of expect to happen in the future. So she and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and we thought, well, if landlords aren't collecting rent and they can't pay their own mortgage, then they may be forced to sell. And when they sell, they might have to sell it at a discount because those tenants may not be paying. So if you were in the market to buy a 2-unit property and you found out that neither unit was getting any rent collected at this time, you might say, okay, that's nice, Mr. Seller, that you want to sell it at $1 million, but this rent freeze might go on another 12 months. So I want to take that, list price down by 10%, and I'll offer that to you. And the landlord might just take it so that they can just wash their hands of this property and move on. Another thing to think about here in our own local market in Los Angeles is that a lot of changes were made when we all voted back in 2020 about some of these propositions affecting property taxes. So for a lot of investors who have a portfolio of properties that they plan to give to their children, those children are going to inherit those properties when those landlords pass away. Those property taxes that used to be transferred. So whatever those parents or grandparents, whenever they got those properties, they just transferred that same tax amount to each generation. And that was the really nice way for a family to build wealth if you don't have to pay the newly assessed value of that property. That's changed. So now if you own a property and you're going to give it to your children, the children can only keep that same tax rate if they plan to live in that property. So most of the time, these are just rental properties and the children likely will not move into them. Maybe they will, but if it's a whole portfolio of them, they're going to end up being reassessed for that new property tax amount. So all of this is sort of bubbling up to tell Shannon and I that there are some opportunities out there to buy multifamilies. So Shannon, go ahead and go to the next slide. If you can. Okay, great. So these are the new loan limits for LA County. LA County is considered a high cost county. And so if you live in one of those high cost counties, those loan limits will look almost exactly the same. If you live in, let's say, a San Bernardino or one of the outskirts of Los Angeles, these limits will be different. But just to keep in mind, if you wanted to buy a single family house and your loan size was under 822,000 today, then that would be considered a conforming loan, where in your eyes, it's going to be much easier to get that loan than if the loan was over 822,000, because that would mean it's considered a jumbo loan. So you can get a loan over 822,000. It's just very difficult to close. Those investors, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, last summer, just shut down. They did not want to give away so much money to buyers. So now they're coming back, but with a lot of restrictions. Units over on the right-hand side, you'll see their loan sizes are quite high to keep it conforming in a much easier way of lending. So let's flip to the next slide.
And Sam, just curious, why are jumbo? I'm just asking from the chat. Why are jumbo loans higher risk, and why are they like what makes them different?
What makes them different? So a jumbo loan means, so loans kind of come in like small, medium, and large. The small loans in our county are 548,000. That's going to be the best interest rate with the easiest guidelines. Then those medium loans, still the same guidelines as the small, just the rates may be a teeny bit higher. Then as you get to the jumbo category, those investors, they get to sort of choose their own guidelines, whereas all the other loans fall under Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are organizations, they're sort of pseudo-government, and they take guidelines and they just give them out to all the banks, and then the banks just use those guidelines, and then Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac can buy those loans. So it's a lot less risk for those banks because Fannie and Freddie purchase those loans. When the loans are over 822, it's sort of like an open rodeo. So those banks might say, okay, well, Wells Fargo will say, okay, we can do jumbo loans up to 2.5 million, but you can't be a first-time home buyer. Well, if you're a first-time home buyer here in Los Angeles, your first house might be 2 million. Who knows? Whatever you might qualify for. So if you don't have history of owning a home, you might not be able to get a loan with that bank. I'm just saying this as an example. It may not necessarily be true. So those investors get to pick and choose. So what I found is that they find the lowest hanging fruit and that they feel comfortable with the risk that they want to take on for their bank. So every bank's a little bit different right now. Some banks aren't doing refinances at all. Some are not doing cash out refinances because that makes it so there's less equity in those properties and it puts those borrowers at risk, right? That if for some reason they just wouldn't have so much equity that end up selling that house to make any money to pay off that whole loan. So jumbo investors they just want to make sure that every single little detail is reviewed to make sure that buyer 100% qualifies for that loan. There's no like gray area like, oh, okay, we can infer this, the underwriter might say on a smaller loan. But from a jumbo, everything has to be verified. It's like you're up on the stand on trial. All right. FHA loans. So for those of you who are first-time home buyers, FHA is a great program you may have heard about. It doesn't mean first-time home buyer. It actually means Federal Housing Agency. And these loans are great for units because you only need to put 3.5% down. So if you're a first-time home buyer that doesn't have a lot of money saved, or maybe wants to invest in several different things, you can use just that minimum amount, 3.5% down, up to a purchase price of $1,092,000 here in LA. And you only need a 620 credit score, but it has to be your primary residence. So what's nice about that is that you could maybe get a gift for that down payment. You could get a co-signer if you need for the loan. A lot of times people will purchase a 2-unit property for a son or daughter or niece or nephew, have that niece or nephew move into the property as their primary residence, and then the aunt or uncle or whoever it might be would co-sign, and that will help them get them started on investing early. There, you'll see the biggest difference from the left side to the right side is what's called a self-sufficiency test. And we could talk a little bit more detail on this in our next class, but this just means that FHA loans for 3 and 4 units are a little difficult, especially here in our LA market, just because the rents have to cover, 75% of the rent has to cover the payment of the mortgage. So if you have, $4,000, or maybe every unit is generating $4,000, 75% of that means $3,000, right? So the mortgage can't be more than $3,000, which is going to be hard because you don't collect a lot of rent here in LA. Most of the time when you buy units, It's so that you can appreciate, you watch that appreciation and you make the gains there when you sell, but not from your month to month rent.
Can I just say something really quick? Like almost laughable at 75% for anything to make it work here in Los Angeles, because at 3.5% down, there's nothing. There's no FHA. I'm shocked if I could find an FHA deal that could work in the county of Los Angeles under those guidelines and 3 and 4 units, because an investor would have scooped that up at 5%. I would have scooped it up at 5%. That's how I bought my fourplex. I did 5% down, and it did meet 75%. And it was so rare, there were 18 other offers. So, I mean, if it's out there, it's going to get scooped up. And I say to people, let it be one of the 18 people so that you have an opportunity to scoop it up. Because if you can qualify for that, get it. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's why I would not recommend this program if you're going to buy 3 and 4 units, maybe in another state or something, but not here in this local market. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So what I would recommend is doing a conventional loan if you're looking at 3 to 4 units. Conventional loans are just the standard vanilla program. What that means, on the left side, you'll see for 2 units, we require 15% down. And for 3 and 4 units, 25% down. So if you're looking for a 3 to 4 unit property, you'll have to own or occupy it and put 25% down for that to work. That's at Movement. Shannon found another program where she could do 5% down. There's some other first-time homebuyer programs that are.
That program's gone away though.
Yeah, Shannon. Okay, fine. So Shannon got to take advantage. I guess what this boils down to is if you're looking to buy units, it's probably a whole lot easier to buy a 2 unit with a loan than a 3 and 4 unit, unless you're an investor that has a lot of money saved. But the nice thing about conventional is that there's no self-sufficiency test. So it doesn't matter if those rents cover the mortgage or not. You can always use those rents though to help you qualify for the loan. And so that's something that we could talk about later about how you qualify. All right. And another very interesting loan program is through a partner who we use named Angel Oak. And they have a new program where you don't have to show any tax returns. Very similar to the 2010 era. But anyway, no tax returns. You have to put 25% down on an investment property. You have to own the house you live in. So this is for, I think there were a couple people on the call who already are homeowners and looking to buy an investment. Great. And if you don't show a lot of money on your tax returns, let's say because you're self-employed, or maybe you're a pretty sophisticated investor and you have lots of different properties in an LLC and you just don't show a lot of that income, this might be the right program for you. And if you put 35% down, I didn't even put this on the slide, the rent doesn't even need to cover the mortgage. They don't even care if you put 35% down. So this program is a specialty program. Special in my industry means higher interest rate. So this is something that you get to take advantage of if you're not paying a lot of taxes or showing a lot of income on your returns. So you kind of have to weigh it out to see what's best for you. Show more income on your returns, get a lower rate. Rates for investment properties kind of hover around 3.5% right now for most of my investors. But when you use a program like this, the rate will be higher.
That's not risky.
It is risky. Okay, one last thing that I wanted to mention today is that it's tax time. Yay, nobody likes this time, but it's good for me because a lot of times if I spoke to someone in early 2020 or even in previous years and we look at their self-employment income that they showed on their tax returns, maybe it really wasn't that strong because their CPA was really great and they didn't have to pay so much in taxes. But when you're trying to apply for a standard loan where the rates are the best, you want to be able to show as much income as you can on your tax returns without having to pay so much in taxes. So it's this balance. So it's a really great time if you're looking to purchase a house to speak with your lender and speak with your CPA before you file. So don't file and finalize your returns. Talk to all of your specialists and your partners and just make sure that what you're planning to file will help support the mortgage that you want to take on this year, or even if it's a year or two from now. Another thing to think about if you're recently self-employed, if you just became a realtor, or you just went out on your own for 2020, you always need to show at least 2 years of tax returns, and we use an average of your net income. So you might gross 150, but then what do you show to the IRS? If you only show 25, then that's all I can use for your net income to qualify. So just make sure that if you're self-employed, we have 2 years of solid tax returns of net income. If you're in entertainment and you get several W-2s every year, 2020 was probably an odd year and wasn't great. But just if whatever income that you did receive in 2020, that's what we're going to use to qualify you for your mortgage. So even though 2019 and 18 were probably much better years than 2020, if you were in entertainment, we still need to use what you made in 2020 to help support you for this mortgage. So it may mean that you have to kind of revise what you're looking to buy, and maybe this place you're buying now will be just your place to live in for the next couple of years till your income becomes steady again. Shannon, do you want to take it from here? Do you want me to?
You can go, Sam.
All right. Well, so that's all that we have for you today. Oh, I do want to say real quick before we do this and have you guys tell us what you learned. I know there were a few people on the call who wanted to learn what to do first, right? You can always speak with me. I'm more than happy to help. I don't charge, most people in my business, we don't charge anything to have a conversation or to even take an application and get you pre-approved. So if you want to buy, the first step would be to speak to someone like me, a lender, and to speak to Shannon too, and say, okay, this is what I'm kind of looking for. To Shannon, you know, I want to buy a condo, or I want to buy a duplex. And then you'll talk to me and then I'll ask you questions like, okay, what do you do for work? What was your income like for 2020? What's your credit score like? And I'll have a kind of an interview on the phone, and we'll talk about what I think you could qualify for. And if you're not quite ready yet and you need to save more money, or we need to work on your credit, I'll give you a path so that you'll know what you need to do, so that when you're ready, you'll fill out the application for our pre-approval, you'll provide me some documents, and then I'll write you the letter. So usually filling out the application to getting the letter takes about 24, 48 hours. And it's always good to speak to a lender, even if you're not quite ready to buy today, just so that you know you have all your ducks in a row. You don't want to go out with Shannon, go look for a place and fall in love and then find out, oh man, I just had a collection put on my credit and now my score is 500. So definitely want to talk to a lender first.